In many ways, Yep is like real life. It's not a straight line. It's dealing with lots of issues. You know, you guys have demonstrated some time management time management challenges and developed some time management skills.
You could.
Now, we've talked about a lot of things. We still have a couple more things to go. We have obviously the executive summary, which will be next week. You know, the final plans are due in on the 11th, as well as your presentations. But tonight we're going to deal with something, the stuff we've dealt with before, some of the stuff you'll never touch the rest of your life. Some of you won't have to worry about a marketing plan or whatever, or how to do HR. Thank God if you don't have to do HR in life. But the one thing that you will have to do tonight, that was what we're going to talk about tonight, and it's how to make a good first impression. Now, whether this, in the skills we're going to talk about, or whether it be you're in a job interview, or if you're going in to sell somebody something, or you're going to be making a presentation. And we've been very fortunate to have Caitlin Finch is now a multi-year participant in this program, and she's with the Center for Life Calling and Leadership at Indiana Wesleyan University, where she spends a great deal of time trying to impart this knowledge on college students. So you're going to be getting a step ahead of them. And then when we're finished with Caitlin, we'll do questions and answers. We'll show you the 2014 pitch video so you can see how the pitch videos are done.
Yeah.
Caitlin
Perfect.
Finch.
Cool. Are you sure I have to wear this thing?
Pardon me?
Are you sure I have to wear this thing? I'm nervous I'm gonna walk and it's gonna yank and then I'm gonna... So you don't want these videos right now?
Well, you're in charge. Oh, no, not you.
You don't want those yet, okay. Oh, is that even? Can you guys? Better? Okay. Okay, so sadly, since I'm tied to this thing, I'm going to be really good and try to stay right here so that I don't cause any dramatic. Yep. Okay, cool. Well, my name is Caitlin Finch, and I do work at Indiana Wesleyan University. I work in career development, so we help our students from their freshman year to their senior year kind of prepare for their careers in whatever capacity that looks like. So sometimes we're preparing students to go to grad school, sometimes we're preparing students for right off the bat jobs. We do internships and everything along those lines. So another big part of my job is giving presentations on all career topics. And one of my favorite presentations to give is actually this one because of what Tim said. It is so relevant to every aspect of your life, and the better you get at presenting and selling and all of those things, the easier your educational journey will be because you have to get up often and speak in front of people quite a bit. So today we're going to talk about how to present. So as we're going through this, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have whenever you have them. It's often easier to remember them as we're going through instead of holding on to them until the end. And then you will get to see videos from last year's pitches so that you can kind of get an idea of what we're working towards. So what makes a good presentation? What are some of the things that you would say, gosh, this makes just a really fantastic presentation? What are some of the key things that you think? And you can cheat because the answers are behind me, but you can also just give me, with speakers that you enjoy listening to, what are some of the common things that are there? Yeah.
A sense of humor.
A sense of humor.
I think confidence.
Confidence. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think being genuine.
Genuine.
Not just rehearsed.
Absolutely. So having kind of a sense of going with the flow. Yeah. Yeah. Were you going to say something? No? Okay. Welcome. Perfect. Yeah, there are a lot of things that make up a good presentation. All of what you've just said makes up a great presentation, but there's also some pretty logistical things as well that make up a great presentation, such as eye contact, how you dress, how you stand, how your voice sounds, if you're providing handouts, your PowerPoint, knowing and understanding your audience. All of those things are going to help you give a better presentation. So as we're starting to prepare for your big presentation in front of a lot of people, you're going to want to start thinking about all of these things and how you can best prepare yourself and your team to give a great pitch to all of those people involved. Make sense? Okay, any questions so far? Nope.
Have you guys ever seen a bad presentation? But none of the program, right? Okay, good.
What are things that are bad in presentations?
If they read your notes.
Oh, right, like if I were turned this way just the whole time, right, that would be really bad. How often does that happen though? Quite a bit, I'm shocked, but it happens quite often. What's that?
Or when they're super quiet.
Oh yeah, and you can't hear anything.
Or
Yep,
they keep saying, or why. That's what
yes. Those are
What
the,
about too much information on a slide?
yeah, like overwhelming.
yes.
Or they read the slide too.
There's
Yeah.
Caitlin and I discussed this before, so I'm doing this with her permission. There's a marketing professional I have a lot of respect for, believes in the power of 7. There should be no more than 7 facts on a slide. Some people believe there should be no more than 7 words.
And some people believe there should be absolutely no words and just photos that capture the emotion that they want you to experience when they're selling a certain thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it is the random. It's not a random event.
Yeah,
And just because you have the ability, because of technology, to slam every fact known to mankind onto a slide, not a good idea.
absolutely.
That's what I hate when teachers like assign us PowerPoints, because you feel like you have to fill it up, but at the same time, when you go to present it to the class, like, it's too full.
Yeah.
So there's that good in between, but it's still scary when you have like a perfectionist teacher that wants like everything on the slide.
Yeah.
Or when somebody's giving a presentation and contradicts the slide. Have you ever had that? That's always one of my fun things too.
Yeah.
Always want to make sure you're tied in your slides.
Absolutely.
How do you know what your slide says?
Well, that too. That goes
Yes.
hand in hand.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh. I just want to make sure that they can see this. Do you guys have copies of this? Okay, good. So presentation tips, some of the things that we just said. Make sure you're engaging your audience. Make sure that you're looking at the crowd. Make sure that your eye contact is solid throughout the whole presentation. When you are meeting with a lot of people, it's easy now when you get up in front of maybe this group of people that you've become very comfortable with over the last couple of weeks to stand up and give a presentation, maybe smile, maybe you feel more like yourself. But then when you transition into giving it in front of people that you've never met, you're nervous, your hands are kind of clammy, you're kind of shaky a little bit, right? Because they're people that are brand new to you and you're trying to sell this idea that you've been working really hard at. You don't want the nerves to get the better of you in that situation. So the best way we can do this now is be fully prepared by practicing. So definitely having all of those things at the forefront and spending a good amount of time practicing for this presentation is critical. Oftentimes, we will have students that are like, oh, but my paper is solid and I know this content back and forth, but they've never practiced actually giving a presentation about it or concisely taking their idea and shrinking it down so that they can present about it well. So if you can't do those things, right, the people are going to hear your presentation probably a little before they read your full business plan. And so having a great and strong presentation is going to move you forward in that. So definitely make it a priority with your team to spend significant amount of time practicing and going through it together and coming up with a plan so that you're all on the same page. That is totally critical. And so sorry, that was a rant, but here are some other tips. To speak at the appropriate level, often you will have microphones, correct, at this event? So kind of practice with those too, because you speak a little bit differently into microphones and you can kind of hear the echo, and it kind of messes you up the first time you do it. So just make sure that you're practicing with those at least once so you can get used to how your voice sounds in a microphone and where to hold it, and if it's clipped on you, where to clip it so that you're not breathing into it and making that breathing sound, you know. Have we all experienced that? When someone breathes into it, it sounds funny. Yeah, so definitely practice with that too, because that's something new that you just haven't experienced yet, so spend some time doing that. Make sure you're enunciating clearly, that you're controlling your speed, so you're not going so slow, but you're not speaking so fast because you're nervous. The more you practice, the easier it's going to be the day of to kind of contain a normal speed through the whole presentation. So that's very important and helpful. And move around just a teeny bit so that you don't look like this the whole time, but be a little more relaxed, kind of open your arms a little bit and feel like, okay, I'm engaging with the audience around me and I can move a little bit, and that's fine. I mean, don't run back and forth across the stage, but move a little bit. Questions on any of that? Will they have a chance to practice with microphones or anything, do you know?
Not this time, because we're still, the final location's up in the air.
Okay. Well, even maybe school would have something that you could practice with.
I think that we would.
You would? Okay, so maybe you can arrange it here or the school that you go to. That would probably be great. So this statement, okay, this happens all the time, right? We get nervous. We fill our silence with, so, and it happens all of the time. One of the best ways to combat this is as you're talking, if you get to a point where you feel like, darn, I don't know what to say next, just pause, just silence. It is golden. Just pause, be silent. Once the word comes to you, then say it. Silence is so much better than I don't know, because it makes you feel like you're just transitioning in your mind to the next topic that you're going to be talking about. Again, the more often that you practice giving presentations, giving your specific business plan presentation, the more confident you're going to feel in it, and you're also going to be able to improvise a little bit, right? Even when you're nervous, you're going to know, I got to say this next, but the pauses will be really helpful instead of filling it with like and ands. I had a college professor once that it was a communication class, and we had to give speeches all the time, and he would really sit at the back of the room, and every time you said like, or and, he would raise his hand like this. And so all you could see the whole time was him going like, and then he had a column where he ranked how many you said, and you got like graded based on how many like and ands you had. And everyone was scared to death to give a presentation because they're nervous, then someone's counting and raising their hand and making a huge deal out of it. But it was one of the ways that it really forced you to not use those words in moments where you normally would. So maybe practice that with your parents, your friends, I don't know, that could be helpful. Questions?
And it's never bad to restate a question to buy time.
Oh, true.
I mean, if you're lost for what's going on, restate the question. Because it buys you time, because mentally you're going through, as you're restating it, you will be thinking of the answer.
Right.
You don't have to plunge right in.
Right.
That's good for job interviews too.
Yes, it is.
This is no different. That's why I said that of all the things we will teach you, tonight you will use this forever.
Yes. Yes.
So we're allowed to have note cards like in our presentation, and that won't look bad. Okay.
Yeah. People are used to, we will send you, prior to the event, we will send you the final list of judges and their bios. But they'll allow you have the ability to look up their biography, they'll have their bios, and get a sense of where they're going to go with their questions. You probably, my goal is for you not to know any. So that they're all from outside the community. Well, I think there'll be one from the community, which is a relatively recent transient. So.
Okay. Yes.
Is it helpful if they are selling a product or encouraging a product to have a product there for the judges to look at?
Absolutely. If you have one that is your, what do they call it, prototype, then yes, for sure bring it in, because that often.
Dogs, right?
What's that?
We have a dog grooming.
It's like, remember I had made reference when we did the finance section, the blue screen of death? The dog could be the blue screen of death. I mean, you have to work it through your mind, how you pull it off. I mean, I've seen presentations that have worked. I mean, one group forever I'll remember was a college competition we run. Very first presentation ever. created a song and a video. I mean, after that, everybody else was just pales. And I saw somebody that did a presentation once that was going to do a medical van. And if you see, remember, somebody just raised $48 million for a very simple deal that they had. But unfortunately, they got pressed for time, and they photoshopped in a step van U-Haul sitting on the top. And the only thing that was in the judge's mind, in my mind, is Timothy McVeigh, the guy who blew up the Oklahoma City Federal Building. It looked exactly like his van. So you just, you're allowed to use your imagination, but sit there and work it through. What happens if that dog decides to take a bite out of somebody? That whole, just think about it. Be very deliberate and purposeful in your 10 to 15 minutes of presentation.
Yeah.
But if your dog is really good.
Yeah, if it's well trained and you feel like you can have a handler on it, sure, by all means, bring it in if you help. I always say if it's going to help showcase or bring real life scenarios into it, then sure. But if it's going to detract in ways that are going to be hurtful or harmful to whatever you're trying to sell, that will be the point.
Well, now that you mentioned it, like you can put like little things like in their ears and stuff like that, like little bows and bandanas. So I think it kind of is a good idea now that we're talking
Well,
about
or even set the stage, like a grooming table
Sure.
with a stuffed dog, where you could see the stage and how you would go about, even if you didn't use it, just ideas of visuals.
Absolutely.
I like that idea too.
Absolutely. There you go.
It's a group decision.
Yeah, make sure everyone in your group is on board. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, questions on any of that? So be careful for your ums, likes, yes, and whatever your filler word is. We all have many of them. My husband, his favorite thing to say when he doesn't know is, you know. And I'm like, I don't know. What are you trying to say? So posture's a big thing, right? Because our posture and our body language communicate almost more than our words do. So if you're kind of hunched over, if you're like this, if you're like way relaxed, that communicates a different message than what you're probably trying to sell, correct? So if your posture is a little bit more open, still very professional, you're engaging with your audience, you're using some hand gestures, not like, crazy, but if it's within reason, this can be very helpful. Women, one of the things that we do in America, which no other country does this, so I don't know how we adopted it. When we give presentations, we always cross one of our legs over the other one, like we have to go to the bathroom. And nobody else does this. No other country has this problem, but we all do. This is a very, I don't know why, but we do it, but it's wrong. And people notice this, and they're thinking, why do they keep crossing their legs like this? This does not make any sense to me. But how often do you find yourself doing that in a presentation? Often. So just make sure that you kind of have a mental note to yourself to not cross your legs in front of the other. Just stand straight and confident. For some reason, I don't know why we do it, but we do. So you can see the example of poor posture and good posture, and I think you all know about that, but make sure you're mindful of that when you're standing on the stage. And I know that several of your groups, you're going to have several different speakers speaking about different portions of your business plan. So come up with a game plan before you do this. Is your whole team going to stand the whole time? Are some of you going to sit while one of you talks? Kind of think about how that will work as well. And make sure that as the person in your group is speaking, that the rest of your group is very engaged with what they're saying, so that the body posture of your group members are also very engaged, very interested, very supportive of whoever is speaking. That's one of the biggest things in group projects and presentations that will often get discredited, is when your group does not look interested in what you're talking about, or some of your group is texting or whatever that is. Just make sure that you're being mindful of what your group is doing as well. Questions? Okay, eye contact. So this is a good example. With you sitting here, I've been kind of struggling because one of the biggest things that you can do during your presentation, and really anytime you speak is constantly be making hits around the room, right? So if I start with you, I kind of move here, I move here, I move here, move here, and then I come back to you, right? So that I'm trying to engage the whole breadth of my audience, not just you that's sitting right in front of me, right? Because you don't want to be talked to the whole time, and you feel unincluded because I'm not looking at you. So make sure that you're very mindful of where your audience is sitting, and make sure that you just slowly, move through everybody as you go around. You're explaining things, people will acknowledge and nod, and just kind of keep doing that. So wherever you start, just kind of make that circle that will go all the way around, so you're constantly engaging different people in the audience. And don't stare somebody down. No one wants that. And do not read your notes word for word. So if you do have note cards, those are great because they end up saving us sometimes if we get nervous or we forget completely, or especially if there are numbers that are critical that you get right. Those are elements that definitely go on a note card. Or a quote that someone else said that you need to quote directly. Those are great for note cards as well. What note cards are not great for is verbatim what you're going to say in tiny, tiny print, cut out and then stapled or glued to the note card. Those are not what note cards are for, right? Because then you're like, oh man, where am I? Oh, that's 2 note cards back, and you get even more frustrated, and that's never helpful. So just when you're doing note cards, make them trigger points for you so that you know, oh yep, this is what I wrote this for, this is what I'm gonna say, here's that number, here's that quote, here's this guy's name that I can never remember, etc., etc. Use those as keys for you, but do not use them as like, here are my notes, do. But you all know that, so. You're a smart group. Questions on that? Energy level, you're definitely going to want to, especially in the pitch, they get how many minutes? 15. So you have 15 minutes to kind of win these people over. The first 5 are probably going to be your most critical, getting them very engaged with your topic, with your product, whatever that is, the business plan that you're trying to promote. Make sure your energy level's high. Make sure your team is enthusiastic. Make sure they're all in and all there so that you can incorporate that. Make sure all your phones are off too.
I apologize.
So you have to be excited about what you're selling in order for everyone else to be excited about what you're selling. Your introductions and conclusions are going to be key points for you, especially in this pitch scenario. The introduction to really grab people in, to keep them interested, to get them excited about what you're excited about. So coming up with a great presentation or great introduction, whether that be some great questions that immediately gets the audience engaged, if it's a great story, if it's a short video clip, whatever that is for you and your product, just make sure that you're using that quickly to engage the audience with. Then you'll get into more of the nitty-gritty details about the business plan, maybe financial statements, et cetera, and everyone kind of like glosses over that. But have handouts for them so that they can reference that in the presentation, so that as you're explaining, okay, here's what the startup costs for this is going to be, you can refer to this on page 2 of the document that was handed to you, so you don't feel like they have to be scribbling down words. Everything's there for them, and help guide the person sitting listening through your presentation too. So remind them, this is on page 2, this is on this point of the paper, or whatever, if they are following along. And then the conclusion, make sure that that is really strong as well, so that they leave feeling like, wow, that was just a stellar presentation. This group really knows what they're talking about. They're doing a great job. So make sure that those 2 parts your group rehearses several times through. Questions on that? Tim, anything to add?
No, other than, you should keep in mind, they are aware that you are high school students.
Correct.
So the standards of which, now these people are all, well, one's a college professor and the rest are make investments in that, very similar to what you're doing. They will recognize they're not looking for perfection. We all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
I one time gave a speech in front of 1,800 people. The only time in my life I used a teleprompter you would think, you see the president do that, and that really was cool. When I signed up for this, little did I know that I was going to have to use a teleprompter, and little did I know that I was supposed to have a PR person, little did I know that I was supposed to schedule rehearsal time. I'm in doing the speech, everything's going well, except I'd made, because there was slides, I made notes for the AV people when to change the slides. I did those in red. You know what happens when you look at a teleprompter and see something in red? You see nothing else. So it was like 3 minutes before I regained any semblance of reality. So, it does happen. Don't worry about it, just roll. No one's going to die because of a mistake.
Very true. Organization and flow. This is one of the biggest things that I think will be critical to your groups here, is definitely come up with a team idea on how you see this presentation working out the best to sell your business plan. You and your team are going to want to be on board on how complex do we want to be in this area, how general do we want to be on this area, what do we want our presentation to feel like, do we want it to be more relaxed and casual, or do we want it to be really, really professional, and how does that mesh with the product that we're trying to sell or the idea that we're trying to sell. So make sure that your team comes up with a lot of these things that will help your presentation flow well into whatever product or idea that you are trying to sell as well. Try to make them congruent to one another. Definitely spend significant time outlining and practicing like we've talked about. The more that you practice, the more comfortable you're going to be with transitions, especially in speakers or introducing your next speaker while you're finishing up your spiel of whatever that you're talking about. So make sure that you're kind of working through that as a team, and please do not practice like 4 hours before you go, or don't let that be the first time you practice, I guess, so that you do have a chance to run through that and understand what it's going to feel like and look like.
But while you think about it, 15 minutes seems like a long time. It can be over in the blink of an eye. So you really do want to spend time, make sure you're proportionate, and that you get all the points that Caitlin has. Because as we told you previously, it's all about explaining what you're going to do with the money and how they're going to get repaid.
And you don't want to leave something not said. And what he's saying is true, that practice and staying under that those minute guidance is crucial. Because I don't know how many students we've heard, I didn't get to this, I didn't get to this, but they don't hear the whole thing, and they hear somebody else's complete presentation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you don't have to cover every detail. I mean, that's probably your greatest challenge on when you're doing a presentation is reducing your idea to 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
Remember, there's going to be questions and answers. Now, the questions and answers are going to make and break you, by the way. And so they're going to ask, and they're willing to accept less than perfect answers, but you have to demonstrate a command of what you're doing and the challenges your business will face.
So, are we supposed to leave time for the questions?
No, that's a separate 15 minutes.
It's after the 15
Yeah.
minutes.
No, we wouldn't. No, that would not.
That would be hard.
That would not be fair. I mean, I don't care for that, and that happens in my career. Now people interject questions that just destroys the flow of the presentation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think one of the biggest things is if you can capitalize on this telling a story, right? That automatically gets our audience really engaged, really excited. They're on board with like, oh, like there's a story, how is it going to end? What's my piece in this story, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can sell your product in that way, that is often very helpful. And when you're doing the product launch or a pitch of the product, like Tim was just saying, we don't need to know every single detail. We need to know why this is so amazing, why it's been lacking in our lives, and why we need this. And we want a story that kind of tells all of that. So as you can get better at kind of narrowing the scope and just giving this really innovative, quick 5-minute, this is why our product is so amazing, and then build the extra that you need off of that for the introduction, conclusion, and some of the financial components. If you can do that, that is a very solid 15-minute pitch presentation. Have you all watched any like Shark Tank clips or things like that? Those are very helpful. Those are very, very quick, like 90, 60-second spiels, but are great to kind of synthesize an idea or learn how to synthesize an idea well. So that is really great. TED Talks are also wonderful ways to kind of hear how people can concisely in 15 to 20 minutes say something or tell this full story. So those are great resources for you to watch or to kind of gain further insight and knowledge as to how you can craft yours to be that way. As we were talking about the slides, presentations, right, they're hard. Even this one, there's a ton of words on here, and I'm not referring to a lot of them because they're there for your knowledge to go home and study, but typically I've gone to like 1 word, 2 words, a picture, an image, something that resonates with the emotional state of people, right? Because giving a presentation, whoever's presenting, right, is the expert on whatever they're presenting about, right? But you want the audience to feel some sort of emotional connection to what it is that you're saying, because that's where the hook is really going to come in for them, and that's where they're going to stay engaged. So if you can try to connect on the intellectual and emotional level at the same time, that tends to be when the most dynamic presentations happen. So giving handouts with a lot of the little details, financials, mission statement, et cetera, those are great things for them to have and to hold on to, and when they look down they can say like, oh yep, there it is. But if they're emotionally connected as well, that's like the sweet spot, the perfect blend. So set it up in a way where they have the hard data that they need, but then they're also emotionally very invested in whatever it is that you're talking about. Those are some videos that we don't need to watch. Practice. I just want to briefly go over what to wear and what not to wear, because this impressions will be made about people within almost before you open your mouth, right? So like today, when you saw me, you probably had an impression of me before I started talking, Tim gave the little spiel of who I was. You had made up your mind kind of, oh, this is this lady. Good or bad, you made up your mind, right? So that's what the people that are sitting in the audience are going to do with you before you even get up and give a presentation. So your body language and what that's saying about you shows a lot to the people that are watching, and everyone's watching your body language throughout the entire process. So just be mindful, like, how do I look right now? Do I look angry? Do I look bitter? Do I look frustrated? Do I look mad? Am I texting like this? Am I in my own world? What am I doing? So just be cognizant and aware of what you're doing and appear approachable. One of the best ways to do that is, and I don't mean to sound catty, but watching your body language and how you dress, especially for these professional presentations, right? If I came in sneakers and socks, like gym socks like this, and a hat, right? What would you automatically think of me? Was I prepared? Am I ready? Do I look like I know what I'm talking about? No. But if I'm prepared and I'm professionally look like, okay, like she's ready to give a presentation, you're automatically going to have higher confidence in me than you would if I wasn't. Yes?
I think for us, like credibility, like relies on like what they're wearing. Like if we go out and we go like see a doctor or something, and they're wearing that doctor's uniform, like we take more credibility on what they say.
Absolutely.
Maybe dress casually.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'm just going to briefly run over these. Typically, business professional is what we would tend to advise for pitch presentations like this one. So for ladies, that could mean a pantsuit, it could mean a skirt suit, it could mean a dress suit, whatever that looks like for you in your life. That would be probably what we would recommend, but if you wear a skirt or a dress, to wear pantyhose with them and a heel with them, but don't wear one of those like platform heels that makes you so tall and they're so uncomfortable. Wear about a 1 to 3 inch heel, so somewhere like right in here. That is the ideal height for women for this. And don't wear flats to this either. Heels just give you that little extra like, okay, a little extra height so that when you want to shrink down, you stand up. And also, again, that credibility piece. Make sure that your hair is polished, that it's not crazy. So most of your hair today is great, you know. So make sure that's under control. Make sure that your fingernails are clean and not like crazy nail polish or some of those awesome like Jamberry nails that have the designs. Make sure for this it's just a professional, solid look. Men, yours is a little bit easier, less options, but you know, a suit, so pants, jacket. And then you can choose the color shirt you wear and the tie that you wear as well. But make, oh, you can get away without a tie?
Because I'm not going to be wearing a tie. So I
Okay.
Don't overdress me. That's the, not that I'm a judge.
My motto is when in doubt, overdress. So that is maybe a contradicting point, but I would probably wear a tie to this, especially if you're pitching. That's my personal preference, but Tim, I don't know. Make
Probably
sure.
from the male's perspective, that's the greatest challenge in today's world is how the tie, non-tie.
Sure.
environments.
Yeah, that is.
If you're, by the way, if you're going for a job interview, you certainly want to follow their directions as to what to dress. Because most companies will give you very clear directions as to what their dress code is going to be. And if you violate those, it's like saying you don't pay attention, you don't care.
Yep. It is. Just make sure you're wearing dress shoes and dress socks and all of that. Questions?
Now we'll run the,
Yes, now we will run the,
these are the pitch videos that we were asking you to do for next week.
okay, wait, I'm sorry, we skipped through. Okay, so if, quickly, we're just gonna run through these quick. PowerPoint, use it if it helps your presentation, but you already said a lot of these things. Be mindful of the size, the colors, et cetera, et cetera. Handouts, weighing if you should have one, if you should not have one. They are helpful for communicating a lot of specific number information, so if you feel like you need that to kind of prove your point, definitely make that for the audience to hold on to make specific notes on. It should be 1 or 2 full pages, don't make it like 1.5 page, and it should be front and back, not stapled. Media backups, at this you will have, they will have a full computer, right?
Yeah.
So you have a full computer, but maybe bring an extra one just in case something happens to theirs, and bring a flash drive with.
We'll have a flash drive because it's the present. You have to use the presentation flash drive that you give to us.
Okay.
That's why we get it early.
So just make sure that you have all of those things kind of squared away with them too before, but in general in life, always bring extras of whatever it is that you're going to use. You never know what's going to happen. And confirm locations and times and all of that kind of stuff. And then arriving, try to arrive at least 15 minutes early to make sure that you have all this stuff squared away, ready to go. You're in good shape. Okay, now questions.